Let me bring in MSNBC senior contributing editor Michele Norris, because she's been waiting. And Michele, you've been inside a few of these campaigns over more than a few election cycles, and I know you've been very much around the Kamala Harris campaign. I want you to weigh in, because everyone is asking, was there a fundamental miscalculation of some kind? I think absolutely Simone Sanders is right. You cannot say that Kamala Harris in the 107 days didn't work her butt off and didn't leave it all on the field. But moving forward, are there any clear messages, do you think, from this campaign to the Democratic Party writ large?
Well, there are messages and there are lessons, and you cannot, first of all, thank you for having me on today. And there are lessons, and there are clearly some miscalculations, because if you look at how well Donald Trump performed across the board and across several demographics, clearly the polls were wrong, and clearly some of the narratives were wrong. I think the point that Simone is trying to say is that a lot of time, a lot of airtime, a lot of ink was spent talking about the performance of black men at the polls. And then we look at these numbers and we realize that it may have been almost a bit of a head fake. You know, all that time spent in barbershops, all that time with messaging that was aimed at black men, the opportunity agenda for black men. You know, there are questions now, should that have maybe been for brown men? So it wasn't so targeted to just one group. So there will be some interesting, you know, right now there's a lot of finger pointing and first thought forensics, but there will be some real forensics going on, and they will try to take the lessons from this. It's important who does that work also. So when you're actually going back and trying to take the lessons, that you don't engage in something that they call a confirmation bias, where you're looking for things that actually support the beliefs that you already hold. There really has to be a sort of open-hearted, open-armed look to take the lessons and to understand how to better perform with white working-class voters, with Latino voters in that broad and diverse diaspora of Latino voters. And among white women, it's interesting, in some places, the abortion ballots actually brought out larger numbers of white women, but they voted in favor of protecting reproductive rights, but then they also voted in favor of Donald Trump. So there's cases where Democrats outperformed, but they still, in those states, Kamala Harris still lost to Donald Trump. So this will have to be studied deep and hard. And right now the campaign is, you know, they'll do the forensics later, but right now they're really focused on the speech at 4 o'clock at Howard, on that brief but spectacular moment where she made that call. You know, there's probably a whole book to be written on that call. That happens every 4 years, or every time there is a change in power, and that concession speech, and the importance of sending a message where she can be proud of the race that she ran, but also remind people that the fight continues, remind people that, yes, you know, this is a day to lick your wounds. Many people have shed tears. I don't think you're going to be able to get a spa appointment in Washington this weekend, because a lot of people are talking about self-care. But, you know, that the work continues after that. And in that brief call with Donald Trump, to also, you know, remind him that he did talk about healing. You know, what does that look like for the country? And this is an opportunity to make the case for moving the country forward without dragging it backwards. Not likely that he would listen to that message coming from her, but you only have one time to make that call, because it's not likely the two of them will be in communication much beyond this.
Michele, with that, take us inside that the Harris camp at this hour, what you know about that, what you can share about that call, because we saw the promise from Donald Trump before the RNC that his speech there was going to be a unifying speech, and it lasted maybe for 20 minutes and then went off into a completely different direction. So, you know, what did she express to him, and how she had the resources to pull herself together and talk to him that way, if she did? Help us understand better what might have happened.
I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about what happened in the call, because they're very disciplined, and out of respect for her, the camp is really
and what
keeping
about her
that
dress
tight.
now at Howard? We see the image, we see the picture of Howard and the yard where she will be, where she would have been last night for a victory celebration, of course, so poignantly. So how is she pulling herself together? This is a tough woman with a great deal of empathy. What is going on there?
She is a tough woman. She's a prosecutor. She has to make a different kind of closing argument now. You know, this is almost an opening argument for the next chapter for Democrats. doing it, Howard, and recognizing that she's not just speaking to several audiences. She's speaking to the group that will assemble there last night, joyous moment, there today, totally different mood. She's speaking to people in their cars and kitchens and in their homes thinking about the road ahead. She's speaking to Republicans, those who supported her and those who supported him, and will ask them to think about what he will actually deliver. He's made some big promises. Can he improve the economy? Will he really start rounding up people? So she'll talk to that, but she also knows in particular that she's talking to young people because she's on a college campus where she herself was once a young person. And I've been told that she's very much thinking about young people and how they handle this moment, recognizing that a lot of first-time voters went the other way, but understanding that the future of the Democratic Party depends in part on how young people see this moment and see their role in the party and in their role in American democracy.